Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is November 20th, 2025, and we are kicking off a really important one today. We're diving into what is, I think, you could argue, the most consequential primary race in the country for 2026.
It really is.
We're talking about the contest to replace Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida.
That's right. And for, nearly 5 years now, Florida has sort of served as this laboratory for constitutional conservative governance. I mean, it's been reshaping national political debates.
Absolutely.
So now the primary question for voters is, it's critical. Who has the policy know-how, the integrity, and the independence to carry that torch forward without, faltering?
And that's our mission today. It's pretty surgical. We've compiled just this immense stack of research. It's a comprehensive report that analyzes every single major candidate across the political spectrum.
Political one.
And the goal is to identify the top constitutional conservative Republican. We need to know who is most aligned with, or, and maybe this is more important, who is most effectively independent of the governor's powerful legacy.
Yeah, and we analyzed 14 total candidates. That's 6 active Republicans, 6 Democrats, and then 2 third-party contenders.
Yeah.
But, for the constitutional conservative voter, the choice, it really boils down to this high-stakes Republican primary showdown.
So you had to dig deep.
We had to dig way beneath the campaign rhetoric and look at, concrete data points. We're talking legislative success, grassroots independence, their ethical track records, and the degree of, true constitutional adherence.
And that's what we want to find out. Who is the legislative architect of the policies that really define the DeSantis era? And on the other hand, who is this powerful national contender who's bolstered by major endorsements?
Right.
We're here to unpack all of that source material. We want to give you, the voter, the definitive data-driven analysis you need before that August 2026 primary gets here.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start by just mapping out this very crowded political field. The total candidate count is 14.
14. It's a lot.
6 active Republicans, 6 Democrats, and then we've got an independent and a Libertarian candidate rounding out the list. That's a massive list. But if we're looking at this through the lens of a constitutional conservative voter...
Which is the nation today.
Exactly. Someone prioritizing limited government, fiscal restraint, the enumerated rights doctrine. We can narrow this field down dramatically, almost immediately.
Oh, absolutely. When the research report applied that standard of constitutional conservatism, the analysis of the non-GOP field became, it was swift and definitive. The Democratic slate. That includes prominent figures like the Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings.
Right.
And the recently switched former Republican David Jolly.
I remember him.
Well, they received an overall grade of F for conservative voters, just across the board.
And just to be clear, that F grade isn't just about, general political disagreement. It comes from their actual policy positions that run completely counter to that constitutional conservative philosophy, right?
Precisely. We're talking about proposals that, they expand the scope and the cost of state government. For instance, they all universally support really stringent, expansive gun control measures.
Things that would clearly restrict the Second Amendment.
Way beyond current state law. They also advocate for significant increases in state spending, which, it necessarily leads to higher taxes and a bigger bureaucratic footprint.
And what about education?
In education, they oppose the parental rights movement, and they generally favor union-centric or top-down state control over local school board autonomy. So for a voter prioritizing limited government, these candidates are They're non-starters. Their whole platform relies on expanding state authority and spending.
Okay, so that's the Democratic field. What about the independent and third-party challenges? Because sometimes these candidates, they can pull support from both sides, especially on fiscal stuff.
Yeah, they fall into a very mixed C to F range. Let's look at State Senator Jason Pizzo first. He's the former Democratic minority leader, and now he's running as an independent, reportedly with backing from No Labels.
So that suggests a move to the center, maybe.
You'd think so. But while switching party affiliation might suggest an independent streak, the source material notes his legislative voting record. It remains consistently liberal Democrat. He supports the same spending and social policies as the rest of the Democratic field.
So the label changed, but the product didn't.
Exactly. He received an F grade for conservative adherence because, the packaging changed, but the policy did not.
Then you've got Scott Jewett, the libertarian entrepreneur. And libertarians often do align with constitutional conservatives on fiscal policy, small government tax cuts.
And that's where the appeal is, and it's why he got a C grade from a purely fiscal conservative viewpoint. Jewett champions radical tax reduction and limited state interference in the economy, which, that resonates deeply with the limited government pillar of conservatism.
But there's always a but.
There's always a bet. The Libertarian platform often diverges pretty sharply on social and cultural issues like education policy and drug legalization. For the core constitutional conservative base, which often couples that fiscal restraint with, social protectionism, the platform becomes this complicated mix.
So who is he for then?
The source material notes he would be a viable option only for a voter who prioritized fiscal policy to the complete exclusion of any social or cultural considerations.
So if you are a conservative voter, we've basically just established that 8 of the 14 candidates simply do not meet the base ideological threshold.
Right.
That narrows the field down a lot. And the real conservative choice, the actual policy debate over the future of the state, is happening entirely within those 6 active Republican candidates.
And this is where the analysis has to become extremely rigorous. This is a primary, so every candidate is ostensibly using conservative language. The differences are found in the nuances. Independence from financial influence, a proven legislative consistency, their ethical track records, and maybe most importantly, the degree of similarity to the current successful DeSantis policy framework.
Okay, let's get into grading that GOP field.
So, to evaluate these 6 Republican candidates fairly and thoroughly, the research report used 5 core criteria. And these are essential because they force the analysis to move past the campaign slogans and look directly at, proven performance and future viability as an autonomous, principled leader.
Okay, walk us through these criteria. Why is each one so crucial for picking a governor?
All right, number 1, conservative credentials. This is the baseline. We're evaluating their constitutional positions, Second Amendment support, cultural stances, their fiscal philosophy. This is what sets the A+ standard.
Makes sense. The foundation.
Number 2, independence from special interests. This one is a huge measure of integrity. We assess their freedom from reliance on, major billionaire donors, powerful panks, the traditional political establishment. A high score here signals a candidate who's really only beholden to the voter.
Okay, that feels really important in today's politics.
It is. Number 3, voting record and experience. This looks at their legislative consistency, their constitutional adherence over time, and the depth of experience you'd need to manage a massive state government.
So not just what they say, but what they've done.
Exactly. Number 4, character and controversies. This is essential for executive office. We're looking at ethical issues, scandals, integrity, personal history, anything that might compromise public trust.
And number 5?
Number 5 is similarity to DeSantis. And this isn't just about cloning him. It assesses how closely their policy alignment and their demonstrated governing style. Specifically, their willingness to fight these high-profile cultural battles and engage in principled executive leadership. How closely that matches the current governor's effectiveness.
Okay, that's a perfect filter. So before we reveal the 2 top-tier finalists, let's go through the other 4 candidates and really expand on why they got their grades, focusing on what the source material pointed out.
Let's do it. Starting with the highest graded of this group, we have Wilton Simpson. He's the current Agriculture Commissioner and former Senate President. He earned an overall grade of B+Sen.
A, B+Fen. That signals a pretty high degree of confidence. So what were his undeniable strengths and what specific factors in the report kept him out of that A tier?
Simpson's strength is his proven legislative reliability. He has over a decade of high-level experience in the Florida Senate, which culminated in his role as Senate President.
So he was there for all the big fights?
He was an essential component in passing virtually all of the major DeSantis legislation, from budgets to education reform. He's experienced, he's steady, and he's generally conservative. The challenge, however, it comes entirely from that independence criterion where he earned a B.
A B for independence. Tell us more about those specific connections that tempered his grade.
Well, his connections are deep, and they're institutional. Simpson has spent a decade inside the Tallahassee political establishment, and critically, his personal and political history is very closely tied to the massive agricultural industry.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. The source material raises questions about how specific policy votes or funding decisions during his time in the legislature may have favored those agricultural interests.
So a potential conflict of interest, or at least the appearance of one.
Exactly. In a primary where anti-establishment sentiment and independence are so highly prized, especially given the current governor's focus on draining the swamp, Simpson's long tenure, and his deep industry ties, It makes him look like a continuation of the establishment system.
Not the disruptive force that voters might be looking for.
Right. He's a strong, steady hand, but perhaps a little too politically entangled.
Okay, next up is Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, who received a C+ in Itauti. His military service is incredibly impressive, a Green Beret, but his time in elected office has been, well, pretty minimal. That has to affect his experience score.
That is precisely the issue. Collins benefits from an excellent military pedigree and his clear loyalty to the DeSantis administration. He supported the agenda. He even sponsored key constitutional carry legislation.
But the experience isn't there.
His experience is limited. He only served a brief tenure in the Florida Senate between 2022 and 2025. This limited record inherently reduces his viability score. But more critically, he received a C grade for character and controversies.
Okay, we need to detail this character concern clearly. What was the specific conflict of interest the report noted about his nonprofit organization receiving state contracts?
The concern is really rooted in the appearance of ethical compromise. The source material details that his nonprofit organization, which works in a field related to his policy interests, received state funding contracts while he was actively serving in the legislature.
While he was in a position to influence the budget process?
And privy to that budget process, yes. Now, while the sources don't suggest anything outright illegal, they flag the inherent conflict of interest. It's the appearance of using legislative power, or at least proximity to power, to benefit an organization you lead or very closely associated with.
So even if it's not illegal, it doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good. For the report, this failure to maintain an absolute separation between public duty and personal organizational benefit. It significantly compromised his standing, leading to that overall C+ grade. He's seen as a loyal follower, but not a proven, independent executive leader.
Okay, moving down the list, we have Charles Burkett, the mayor of Surfside, with a straight C grade. Does his local experience translate at all to the scale you need for a statewide race?
Minimal translation, unfortunately. Burkett's experience is limited just to the local level, and while he campaigns on a conservative platform, tax cuts, business-friendly policies, strong support for immigration enforcement, the scope of his experience just doesn't compare to leading the House or, managing a federal district.
And there was a character issue there, too.
Yes, his C score for character was heavily influenced by his high-profile and controversial handling of the devastating Champlain Towers collapse.
Right, I remember that.
The report suggests he was polarizing in his local community during a crisis, and this raises questions about his temperament and his ability to unite the state in moments of high pressure. He remains a long shot due to that limited state-level scope.
And finally, we have the candidate the report essentially rejects, James Fishback. He received an outright F grade. This is a powerful, definitive judgment. We have to take a moment and impartially report the source's justification for such a total rejection.
Yeah, this is what the report calls a necessary rejection, based on those foundational criteria of character and integrity. Fishback makes conservative claims, sure, but the source material labels him explicitly as not a serious candidate.
Why?
Because he has zero proven political experience, and his candidacy is marred by deeply compromising ethical issues. The F grade is almost entirely due to the source material citing instances where he has made racist and anti-Semitic statements.
Wow.
Furthermore, the report notes contradictory and, frankly, unsubstantiated claims he put forth regarding his connections to the DeSantis team, which severely compromises his credibility and honesty.
So we aren't just saying he's inexperienced. The sources are signaling that his documented public conduct makes him unfit for serious consideration for executive office.
Exactly. For any conservative voter who's prioritizing character, integrity, and just basic decency, the source material suggests this candidate is fundamentally unqualified. He must be rejected from the field.
Okay, so the field is now successfully filtered. The choice for Florida constitutional conservatives, it ultimately rests between two established political heavyweights, former House Speaker Paul Renner and Congressman Byron. This is where the deep dive truly begins.
It is, and this primary race is a fascinating study in political trade-offs. Paul Renner received the highest rating in our research report, an A+ overall grade.
An A+.
While Byron received a B overall grade. However, and this is a big however, when we isolate the most important metric, their constitutional adherence based on legislative actions and voting records, both candidates stand shoulder to shoulder. Both get an A+ MIC.
Okay, let's unpack that shared A+ constitutional adherence first. If they both have this unwavering commitment to constitutional principles, What evidence supports that for each of them? What are the specific policy battles that define their conservatism?
For Byron Donalds, the evidence is clear, it's measurable, and it's highly reliable. His exceptional congressional voting record, he maintains a remarkable 96% Heritage Action score.
Okay, wait, let's pause there for a second. For listeners who might be less familiar with DC metrics, what exactly is the Heritage Action score, and why does a 96% score carry so much weight?
The Heritage Action score is, it's basically a legislative report card.
Yeah.
It's issued by Heritage Action for America, which is a very powerful conservative advocacy group. It tracks how closely a member of Congress votes in alignment with the organization's foundational conservative principles.
Fiscal responsibility, limited government.
Exactly. Fiscal responsibility, limited government, free markets, and constitutional rule. A 96% score means that on nearly every key vote that's deemed important by conservative standards, Donalds voted correctly. It demonstrates an almost perfect, unwavering constitutional voting pattern.
Okay, so it's a gold standard. And you mentioned specific, highly relevant votes that define his modern constitutional conservatism.
Yes. For example, he voted for the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act. This is a critical litmus test for modern constitutional conservatives.
CBDC, central bank digital currency.
Right. This legislation, it seeks to prevent the Federal Reserve from establishing a U.S. digital currency, which constitutionalists fear could be used by the government to track and control personal financial transactions.
Basically a surveillance state through your bank account.
That's the fear. So his support for this bill signals a deep commitment to protecting financial privacy and personal autonomy against government overreach. He also voted for the Equal Representation Act, which would ensure a citizenship question is placed on the census.
Reflecting a commitment to tying representation explicitly to citizens.
Correct. And on top of that, as a gubernatorial candidate, he has vowed to repeal red flag laws, showing an unyielding commitment to the Second Amendment.
That paints a picture of a candidate with an excellent tested record in Congress. Now, let's turn to Paul Renner. His A-plus record isn't defined by scores in D.C., but by tangible legislative architecture right there in Tallahassee.
And that is the essential difference. Renner's record is one of execution. As the 103rd Speaker of the Florida House, he served as the primary legislative co-architect for virtually all of Governor DeSantis' signature policies over the last few years.
So when we talk constitutional rights, Renner didn't just vote for it.
He actively championed the successful constitutional carry legislation that passed. He also ensured the passage of the Parental Rights in Education Act. He fought vigorously for anti-DEI measures in state universities, and he consistently steered the state toward fiscally responsible budgets. It shows a profound commitment to limited government and taxpayer protection. Both men have the policy chops.
So, if they are both A-plus constitutionalists, the voters have a choice between the high score in D.C. and the successful policy builder in Tallahassee. Let's look at the next critical point of comparison. Similarity to Governor DeSantis. Who is the true political heir apparent?
Our analysis shows a subtle but really significant distinction here. Paul Renner is rated as the most similar to DeSantis with a 95% policy match.
95%, that's high.
It's incredibly high, and it's understandable, given that he literally helped implement and build the current administration's policy framework.
But what are the key elements that contribute to that 95% match, and where does the last 5% diverge?
The similarities are foundational. They share comparable military and legal backgrounds. Both served in the military, both are trained attorneys. They collaborated closely on major initiatives like election integrity measures and the Pioneers DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion bureaucracy.
So their core philosophy is almost identical.
Their constitutional philosophy, centered on fighting back against federal overreach and empowering state authority, is nearly identical. The critical 5% difference noted in the report is fascinating, though.
What is it?
Renner is explicitly stated to be more fiscally conservative than the current governor.
More fiscally conservative than DeSantis.
Yes. He's advocating for stronger, more rigid restraints on spending and more aggressive property tax reduction mechanisms. So he is a continuation of the policy legacy, but with an even sharper focus on the budget.
And Congressman Donalds, where does he land on the similarity spectrum, given his strong philosophical alignment?
Byron Donalds comes in highly similar, with an 80% match. He aligns strongly on limited government, the Second Amendment, anti-woke policies, fighting federal bureaucracy.
Okay, but 20% is a pretty big divergence. Where does that come from?
It's not just about policy. It revolves around experience, independence, and the political context of his career. Donalds has less executive or complex legislative experience than DeSantis had when he first ran. And perhaps more crucially, the sources note that Donalds appears to be more beholden to major financial and special interests than DeSantis was when he first campaigned.
So while the ideology is aligned...
The governing style and the political financing differ substantially.
Okay, this is it. We're at the crux of the matter. This is the crucial pivot point where political reality separates the philosophical alignments. If both candidates have stellar policy records and are highly similar to the outgoing governor, why the massive difference in the overall grade A+ for Renner versus B for Donald?
You've hit on the definitive point.
We have to dedicate time now to the criteria of independence and character because this seems to be where the true conservative choice is made.
It is. For a significant segment of the conservative base, especially those prioritizing integrity, autonomy, grassroots representation, these two categories are the tiebreakers. And the analysis reveals an extremely stark contrast when we move beyond policy into political behavior and conduct.
So let's start with the A+ case, the case for Paul Renner.
Paul Renner's A+ overall grade, it really signifies comprehensive strength across all 5 criteria. His legislative record is proven, his character is largely sound, and his independent score is exceptional.
Let's start with the depth of his experience. He wasn't just a member of the House, he was the Speaker. He was in the highest position during a period of intense, high-profile conservative reform. That's a massive executive-style advantage.
It is a critical advantage. As former House Speaker from 2022 to 2024, Renner was responsible for the strategic execution and passage of nearly all the major conservative victories that defined the DeSantis era.
So
We're talking about navigating complex political terrain to deliver parental rights legislation. The successful passage of constitutional carry, which was highly contentious anti-DEI initiatives, and implementing fiscally sound budgets. His record isn't just one of voting, it's one of proven leadership and institutional management.
But the real differentiator, the area where he earned an unassailable A+ in position, was independence from special interests. And this is where the political dynamic gets truly fascinating for the listener.
It creates a unique narrative in modern politics. Renner demonstrated independence in 2 specific, compelling ways, according to the source material. First, financially. He exhibited impressive grassroots strength, raising an impressive $3.7 million in just 35 days from a broad base of smaller supporters.
Wow, in 35 days.
And he showed a clear willingness to self-fund if necessary. This limits his structural reliance on the largest donor classes.
And the second point, this political friction with the current administration, that's maybe the ultimate test of independence.
That's the key evidence. The sources explicitly state that Governor DeSantis expressed opposition to Paul Renner's candidacy for governor.
Wait. Opposition. The guy who was his legislative architect.
That's right. This creates an extraordinary high-stakes political rift. You have the legislative co-architect, the person who made the current administration's policy vision a reality, now running for the top job, and he's actively opposed by the outgoing administration's political machine.
That political opposition, if you view it through the anti-establishment lens of constitutional conservatism, that could be seen as a huge asset, couldn't it? It suggests he's not beholden to the existing state party apparatus.
It's highly symbolic. For the voter who is disillusioned with political insiders and looking for autonomy, the fact that he is fighting the establishment structure that he helped build is a powerful testament to his future ability to govern autonomously.
And there are real consequences to that.
Oh, absolutely. This opposition translates into political consequences, too. It means Renner likely won't receive the easy flow of dark money or party resources that a favored candidate might. It forces him to rely more heavily on those grassroots donations and his personal financial viability. His A+ independence grade reflects this willingness to endure significant political friction to run his own race.
Okay, and regarding his character controversy score, he got a B+A, which is very strong. What was the specific controversy noted, and how did he mitigate it?
His record is fundamentally clean. It's bolstered by his military service and his legal background. The one political vulnerability noted was his 2018 vote for the Red Flag Law, SB 7026.
Right, which allows temporary removal of firearms from individuals deemed a threat.
And that vote was highly controversial among Second Amendment purists. But he later championed constitutional carry and explicitly pledged to sign open carry legislation as governor. So he demonstrated a clear evolution and commitment to constitutional gun rights. The B+ grade recognizes the general integrity while noting that one legislative blemish.
So, to summarize Renner's case, the policy continuity is undeniable, the legislative experience is unmatched, and his independence is verified by the fact that he's running against the grain of the outgoing administration's political preferences.
Correct. And let's just reiterate that fiscal difference.
Right.
Renner represents an evolution toward even stronger fiscal conservatism, pushing beyond the current governor's excellent record to advocate for principled restraints on budget growth and aggressive mechanisms for property tax relief. For conservative voters whose primary concern is the taxpayer burden, this distinction is critical.
Okay, now we have to turn to Byron Donalds. We've established he has an exceptional A-plus constitutional voting record in Congress, but the research report gives him a B overall, so we have to examine the severe drop-off in the independence and character criteria that caused this dramatic reduction in his score.
Yeah, let's start with independence, where he received a D grade. This suggests a significant structural issue.
AD. That's almost failing.
The term the report uses is indicative of the problem, a structural dependence. Donalds received a D grade for independence from special interests. And for a constitutional conservative who often champions the fight against the political establishment, this is the most significant red flag.
So where's the money coming from?
The source material details his heavy reliance on special interest funding. It cites major financial backing from large billionaire donors and, critically, very tight connections to the finance, insurance, and real estate, the fire industries.
Why does this reliance on the fire sector matter so much in a Florida gubernatorial race? What are the implications of this D grade?
The fire industries are enormously powerful in Florida's economy, especially with the state's status as a low-tax destination and the ongoing climate challenges related to insurance and real estate development.
So there's always a conflict there.
The constitutional conservative philosophy demands that politicians prioritize the average voter and the small business owner over massive corporate entities seeking regulatory favor or tax carve-outs. When a candidate's war chest is dominated by large, concentrated interests, the question is inescapable.
Will they be able to govern independently?
Will they maintain regulatory neutrality? Or will necessity of future fundraising influence executive and legislative decision-making? We're talking about insurance rate setting, real estate development permits, financial regulation. The source material frames this heavy reliance as fundamentally compromising his ability to be truly autonomous.
That level of financial dependency, it seems to entirely outweigh his strong congressional voting record for those voters who are prioritizing independence and anti-establishment integrity.
Right.
Now let's address the final hurdle. His character and controversies grade, which was a C.
Right.
What specific ethical and conduct issues led to this lower score, despite his conservative adherence?
There are compounding issues noted in the sources. First, the sources mention past criminal charges from his youth. And while these events happened many years ago and rehabilitation is often noted, they remain part of the public record and they contribute to the overall character assessment regarding judgment and integrity under pressure.
Okay, but the most critical element the report cited, it was about his fitness for high executive office, and it involves serious ethics issues from his time in Congress. Let's clarify the nature of these Stuck Act violations.
We are talking about severe issues related to transparency and financial conduct. The Stuck Act, that's the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act, is a law designed to prevent insider trading and ensure transparency among members of Congress.
And it requires them to report their stock trades.
It requires timely and accurate reporting of stock trades. The source material cites that Donalds was found to have over 100 unreported trades, which constitutes multiple repeated violations of the act.
Over 100. Now, hundreds of thousands of trades happen in Congress annually. Why does the report focus so specifically on Donald's unreported trades? Was it a procedural failure, or did the report suggest an intent to hide something?
The report highlights the sheer volume of unreported trades, over 100, as signaling a profound and systemic failure in attention to ethical requirements. Whether it was accidental or intentional, that level of noncompliance raises significant questions about transparency and proper conduct in office.
And that's a problem for someone who wants to be a governor.
In an executive role, where the governor holds immense regulatory power and fiduciary responsibility over the state's finances, this record of failing to comply with financial transparency laws, it creates a heavy cloud of ethical suspicion. The sources suggest that this repeated failure indicates a lapse in judgment and diligence that is unacceptable for the highest office in the state.
So when you combine the past charges, the repeated financial ethics issues with the Stuck Act, and the heavy reliance on powerful special interest funding, all of this creates an overall narrative of ethical and financial risk around his candidacy.
It forces the voter into a complex trade-off. Donalds is an excellent, unwavering constitutional conservative, on paper an A-plus policy score.
Uh,
He has strong national endorsements, and he aligns philosophically with the current governor. But you have to weigh that against a D independence grade and a C character grade, resulting from serious ethics issues and structural dependency on specific financial industries. He's presented in the report as a high-risk candidate despite his policy fidelity.
So if the ultimate decision for the constitutional conservative is between Renner and Donalds, it really comes down to a choice between proven legislative achievement paired with proven independence, or a strong congressional record bolstered by national recognition, but compromised by documented character issues and financial dependencies.
That's the choice.
Let's try to synthesize all of this.
When we synthesize all the data across the 5 criteria, from the comprehensive research report, conservative credentials, independence, experience, character, and similarity to DeSantis, the conclusion for the constitutional conservative voter who is aiming for autonomy and integrity, it becomes pretty clear.
Give us the final ruling from the research report.
For voters seeking the most constitutionally conservative candidate who is most similar to DeSantis in policy, but is most independent from special interests, Paul Renner is the definitive choice. He earns the A-plus overall grade. He has the superior legislative track record, the proven ability to lead the House to major conservative victories, and that critical A-plus independence grade, a grade that's validated by the political friction he is currently enduring.
And Donalds.
Byron Donalds, despite his exceptional congressional record, is compromised by his D grade in independence due to his reliance on special interest funding and the documented C grade for character due to ethics issues and past conduct. That results in a B overall grade.
So what does this all mean for the voters who are preparing for that August 2026 primary? It means the choice isn't a simple ideological litmus test. It's a calculation of integrity and political leverage.
It really is.
The core challenge for Florida constitutional conservatives is choosing between the candidate who has proven legislative achievement and stronger fiscal conservatism and who is actively opposed by parts of the current administration's political structure. That's Renner.
Right.
Versus the constitutional congressman who has stronger national endorsements but is compromised by significant funding dependencies and character questions. That's Donalds.
And the underlying tension here is the most fascinating political narrative in the source material.
Mm-hmm.
We noted that Governor DeSantis opposes Paul Renner's candidacy, even though Renner was the legislative spearhead who delivered the governor's agenda. This is not common. It was just fundamental clash over future direction or political autonomy.
And this raises the essential provocative question that you, the voter, have to decide between now and the primary. In a post-DeSantis Florida, what constitutes true conservative independence? Does it mean supporting the person who built the policy legacy but is now fighting the state establishment structure, like Renner? Or does it mean choosing a nationally endorsed candidate who aligns philosophically but maintains a documented troubling distance from ethical and fiscal independence, like Donalds?
Is the opposition to Renner truly a testament to his independence, signaling his future effectiveness as an autonomous leader who won't be easily controlled by Tallahassee insiders? Or is this political friction a sign that he will face debilitating obstacles if he tries to rally the broader party and legislative support needed to govern effectively?
You have until the August 2026 primary to decide which factor independence from the political establishment or the potential for greater party alignment is the greater conservative virtue for the future of Florida.